David, very nice to meet you, and I'm sure the students are going to learn a lot from you today. Would you like to introduce yourself so that they know exactly who you are and what you're doing with Comerica?
Yes, absolutely. Carol, thank you for inviting me, and super excited to be here. Super excited to talk with you all today. My name is David Betancourt. I work for Comerica Bank. So it's, regular bank, just like any other, not one of the largest like a Wells Fargo, B of A, but, still providing the same usual services. My title with the bank is External Affairs Market Manager, which is a little bit different from what you might think of for a bank position. But essentially, my role is to spend money on behalf of the bank in the community, I guess is the easiest way to put it. So I get to take the bank's money and spend it into the nonprofits and different organizations that are really making an impact. Just like Fulfillment Fund, putting together programs like this and really reaching out to the community to change lives and impact people.
That sounds like a lot of fun. Is there any one aspect that you really enjoy?
That's a tough question because I think there's so many. I think the main thing for me is just really being able to make a difference in people's lives, and at different areas too. I think that I'll focus on the three things that we prioritize. So we invest in affordable housing. We invest in community services, which I'll explain. And then we also invest in small business, so economic development. On the affordable housing piece, you can only imagine, you have folks that really are, working day in and day out just to pay the rent, just to get by. And these properties that we're able to support and invest in provide them housing, provide them with the roof over the head for them and their families. And also provide additional services. During the pandemic, a huge need was food distribution, especially for senior citizens. Seniors were, the most vulnerable to the virus, right? And it was dangerous for them to go out to grocery stores and shop and get, food and the household supplies that they needed. So these organizations would literally go door to door and hand deliver, those basic supplies, the like soap, paper towels, things like that. And then also groceries, healthy groceries. So that was really impacting lives. Community services, there's two things. There's the career readiness, the career development, just kind of like what we're doing today, and really reaching out to those students and letting them know what's possible, letting them know that, no matter where you come from, no matter what your background is, there is a way to accomplish whatever it is that you want to do in your career. It's all about finding the right resources and the right tools, finding a mentor. But then also financial education is a huge component of what we do. Everything from basic understanding what a checking account is, understanding what a savings account is, how to use a credit card. I think it's, you have to be careful, you have to be responsible, but it's never too early to learn how to build credit. But just understanding, how important it really is to have a bank account, and there's still a lot of folks out there that, just don't for multiple reasons. And it's our job to really get out there in the community and figure out ways to bridge that gap. And then the last component was small business. So, I'm sure you can go outside your house, look down the street, and you'll see small businesses everywhere you go. You'll see little restaurants, you'll see barbershops, just about, any little mom and pop shop that you could think of. And, a lot of times, especially during COVID, those small businesses were really struggling, because we couldn't go shop, we couldn't go in person and buy the same types of products we could buy. And so we're finding different ways to support them, finding, funds to support them, access to capital is what we call it, but, distributing different business loans to them. But then also on the technical assistance side, which is basically advising, showing businesses how to kind of build a strategy, how to really build your business model and how to really be successful in a business. So anybody here has that entrepreneurship mindset, or wants to be a business owner one day, you want to be your own boss, let me know, because there's a lot of resources out there that can help you out.
That's great, David. I'm going to take you back to what you said about when you got started out. Are you from Los Angeles? So you grew up here?
I did. So I grew up in West Covina, moved over to La Puente during high school. I went to Bishop Amat High School. I don't know if anyone is familiar. And I was a big sports person, actually. I grew up playing baseball and football my whole childhood, and all throughout high school as well. And so it was interesting because when I graduated high school, I attended University of Verne. That's where I went, and I majored in business, and for two reasons. One, my mom was a small business owner, so she started her own. I don't know if anyone remembers Build-A-Bear. I think Build-A-Bear is still open.
Yeah, very much so.
But she started her own business called Enchanted Bear Factory, which is essentially a Build-A-Bear but mobile. So we would go to birthday parties. I would help her at festivals. We would set up the booth and build stuff the bears and everything. And so that was one reason why I was already kind of intrigued by business. But then also my mentality at the time was business you can kind of do a lot of things with the business degree, right? And so I went to school actually for baseball, but then I ended up playing football at Laverne. And that was just kind of like what I knew, right? Like that was the easiest way for me to transition from high school to college, was just kind of doing what I had been doing my whole childhood. And then it wasn't until really my junior year in college when I had to think like, okay, you have 2 years left, you're going to graduate. You need to figure out what you're going to do when you graduate, because I wasn't going to make it into the NFL. I was too small, too slow. And so I really needed to figure it out. And that's when I had to make a decision. And luckily enough, a program called the Small Business Development Center had just opened up on the university campus. And they were looking for student employees to work there part-time while going to school. So it was perfect. So I would, learn what I would learn in the classroom, and I would apply it to my everyday job at the Small Business Development Center, and we would work directly with small businesses. And so that was the day I had to tell my coach, coach, I love football, but I'm not going anywhere after this, and I need to start my career. And I stuck to work. I stuck to the Small Business Development Center, and I'm glad I did, because that pretty much started, what the rest of my career was going to look like.
So one of the questions was, how long did it take you to get your bachelor's? Were you there for 4 years or or more?
Yes. So I finished my bachelor's in 4 years. Laverne is a pretty, I'm not recruiting for Laverne. I don't get any commission, but if you do want to go there, they do have a really good program for incoming freshmen. And it kind of helps you already stay on track with your academics, and they'll keep you on track to graduate in 4 years. So I know a lot of people like to go to a community college as well, just to get their general ed out of the way, because it's more cost friendly. And by all means, if you want to do that, that's a good strategy to use too. You could always transfer out and go to whatever other university you want to get your degree. But I went to Laverne for all 4 years. Finished in 4 years, and then I actually got hired full-time at the Small Business Development Center after I graduated. Worked there for a year, and then went back to Laverne and got my MBA, because it just made sense. I was already working there. Being an employee, they give you tuition readmission, and I didn't have to drive to class. I could just walk down the street and I was already at class. So nice. It worked out.
And then how did you transfer from Laverne to Comerica? Was it a straight line, or did you have different roads?
Yes. I never thought I would work in a bank. I always thought I was always interested in it, but never thought I would find myself in this type of role. So basically, when I was still working at Laverne, I got really involved in chambers of commerce, and I recommend everybody does, regardless what your career is, because chambers offer so many resources. But specifically, I got really involved with the California Hispanic Chambers of Commerce. I was a student in their Creating a Path to Success program, which is actually a workforce development program. And so I went through that program, and I think that's where I kind of had that life-changing moment, right? Like I started really seeing different opportunities of what's actually available, and kind of starting to realize that, it's more than just, working at a desk all day, or it's more and nothing, and it's more than just kind of limiting myself to a certain area. And the other really big life-changing moment was just kind of hearing the stories from other students, right? And the challenges that everybody went through, right? And we all have our own struggles. We all come from different backgrounds, and none of our lives are perfect, And so hearing what other students had to deal with and still get to the point where they were at in their career in that program with me, some of them had more experience than I did. And so it made me feel like I needed to step up. I needed to do more than what I was just doing in my day job. And so after completing that program, I volunteered to become an advisor for the program. Then 2 years into being an advisor, I actually got nominated to serve as a board member for the chamber. And through the work I did with them, I actually got recruited to work at the Los Angeles Area Chamber of Commerce. And so I went to the Los Angeles Chamber, still doing small business and workforce development programs. And through that work, because in the chamber world, you just meet so many people. You meet so many different corporations.
So
government.
networking is very important.
Oh my goodness. I I can't even stress enough how much networking really plays a role. And this is actually a perfect example of how I got to Comerica, because I get a phone call one day while I was at the chamber saying there's this job opening with Comerica, and I think you would be perfect for it, and I think you need to give the hiring manager a call, right? And so I wasn't aware this job was available. I didn't see it posted online anywhere, and I never actually knew anybody from Comerica, but I knew the middle person who had that connection. Right. And that was through my network. And so, long story short, called, interviewed, and next thing you know, here I am at Comerica.
Being at Comerica, does it kind of jive at all with what your dreams were as a kid, or are they totally different from where you saw yourself?
Totally different. I think as a kid, I didn't know what exactly I wanted to do. I was really big into like movies, to be honest with you. I love Universal Studios. Nothing against Disneyland, but I love Universal Studios, and I always thought I would end up in like the film industry for some reason. I always wanted to be in the film industry. And I actually, I did apply to Loyola Marymount because they had a good school for film, and I didn't get in. And so that is basically what overall made my decision to go to Verne, and I'm glad it did, because now, looking at a broader perspective, we still partner with Universal. We'll still partner with Disney on certain things. But now, instead of making movies or films or anything like that, like I literally get the opportunity to work like in the community and make an impact in the communities that we live in, that we live in every single day. So I'm glad it all turned out the way it did.
So how long have you been at Comerica now?
You know what? It's going to be my 1-year anniversary on the 20th of this month. So perfect time.
Happy anniversary. What an interesting year you've had then.
Yeah, I got hired in the middle of the pandemic. I did. My interview was in a parking lot. It was very interesting. I met my boss in a parking lot. And then they mailed me my computer, and I have been working from home ever since. I've never seen my office. I've never been to my office. So if you can only imagine that, having a job where you don't have to go to your office, it's just, I never could imagine that.
You will eventually though, right? You'll eventually go into an office. Maybe.
I will. You know what? But my role is very community oriented, and I think that's what I love about my role. I do need to go into the office, from certain times, but most of my work is done in the community. So I'll be traveling to,
Nice.
partnering with different organizations and meeting with people in the community. So I'll be
We're
out and
getting
about.
we're getting some great questions in the chat, so I'm just going to kind of read off some of them so that we can hit them. Have you
Okay.
ever gotten some other big job opportunities, high paying or really exciting, that you've either turned down or made the decision not to do it? And have you ever regretted that decision?
I do not regret any of my decisions because I love what I do now. I think one of the things I really was interested in doing, and I had the opportunity to do it, was work for the Small Business Administration, which, never say never, it could still happen. But I think at the time, it wouldn't have been the right move. And the reason why I was interested in the Small Business Administration is because they are kind of the government department that oversees the small business development centers where I worked at Verne. And so I kind of saw that as like the next step up. But I think this job now, working with the LA Chamber and now with Comerica, has exposed me to a lot more. And if I would have went and worked for the SBA, I would have been only focused on, small business work.
There's been a couple questions about salary. Is there a range, like give a large range of maybe somebody in your position might make at a bank? And if it's different from like a bank teller versus maybe what you're doing in the back end.
Yes. Well, bank tellers, they work more on they work more like on an hourly rate, so that could range anywhere from $20 and up, and you get paid per hour. Once you go more into like the management level, executive level, you're more on salary. My type of role could range from 90,000 a year up to I would say maybe 130, depending on the bank you work at.
Okay.
So
to get you obviously have experience coming from Verne and all the different things you've done at the chambers. What kind of skills do you think are really important in specifically more what you're doing as opposed to other roles in the bank?
Right. That's interesting because a lot of people who have my type of role have been in banking for majority of their careers, right? And I'm the only person on my team that I literally had never worked in a bank before. But what's interesting about that is because my type of role is having those relationships and being able to connect with the community. So in the work I did beforehand, that's exactly what I had already did. I had already had those relationships. I had already built my network of people that I knew were doing really good work in the community. And I was able to I understand how to put together good programs, events. And so that plays a key role in what I do now. But I do think it is still really important as you're kind of learning. Data is always going to be there. You're never going to get away from data. So understanding numbers. But I think a really big component that everybody should have is that communication skill. Know how to talk to people, know how to make people feel comfortable. That's something that, a lot of people struggle with.
Yeah. What are some insights? Well, you've already kind of covered. What are some insights about your job, the pros and the cons? Followed by, is understanding numbers difficult?
It depends. I was decent at math. I'm not going to say I was bad at math. I was pretty good. I think it all depends. Like if you understand what you're working on, like when it comes to loans, when we have small businesses that are applying for loans, that's a different department. So I don't deal with that. And if someone was to show me that application and take a look at what the application looks like, I probably wouldn't know exactly what is supposed to be happening. I have an idea, but I think overall just data is really important. And managing a budget is a big part of my job. So figuring out which community partners get what type of grants. Definitely understanding numbers and learning how to read numbers is a really important skill.
Do you ever find that after you've made a decision about maybe somebody who gets a grant, or basically everybody messes up, have you ever messed up and been able to fix it, or just had to make it right? I mean, it happens to everybody. It's one of those things that's just a life lesson.
Right.
But
Yeah.
how do you deal with it?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think we mess up just because we know the money is going to good use, right? And before we even give out a grant and say, yes, we'll give you a grant, I mean, we have to do our part to really learn about the organization first. And so, I'm never going to say, yes, I'm going to give you a grant without doing my research, without meeting with the people who work there. I think, if maybe things don't turn out as expected, that's always a learning opportunity and a coaching opportunity. So, a big part of this job is relationships. So if something goes wrong, there's a meeting that we need to have. We need to talk, and we'll fix it.
If you could go back and tell your 10-year-old self what he should do to get to where you are now, different or the same, what would that advice be?
10-year-old self.
Or you can pick 15. Pick a number.
Yeah,
when
I'll
you're
say
young.
10-year-old. I wasn't paying attention at 10 years old.
How about 15? Getting ready to go in 12 to 15 when you're in high school, kind of starting to figure out what you're doing.
Right. I would have been more active with internships. I definitely would have been more active with internships, and in college, I would have been a lot more involved in clubs, because they offer a lot of opportunities and resources. And when you're hiring, if somebody who's hiring has been involved in one of those clubs during their college days, they're going to be familiar with that, right? And that's an automatic connection. So I definitely would have been more involved in clubs, and I would have been a lot more active in applying for internships.
How did you get the job on Laverne? Do they advertise? I assume that whatever was done on Laverne would be done on other campuses, something similar. So it would be advice to everybody, regardless of where they go, to get a job on their campus.
Yeah, so I mean, every campus is going to offer different jobs. There's a program called Federal Work Study where basically it's like the government that's paying you to work for the school. Mm-hmm. And so not every school is going to have a small business development center. So that, that's only a certain schools, but yeah, so they sent out an email to all the students that were studying business. And then from there, I, applied online and had the interview there.
What kind of experience would you recommend to our students, the 8th to 12th graders that may not be old enough to work in a bank, but are looking for experience to put on their resume already?
Right.
Internships?
Yeah, I would say to start volunteering. If you can't get a work permit and work yet, I would say start volunteering or finding different ways where you can just help out. I would say small businesses are a great place to start because they need all the help they can get, right? And a lot of times they can't afford to hire a full-time person. And so if you're interested in I'll say marketing, for example, you understand social media, you understand how to post on Instagram and Twitter and everything like that, and you see a small business that doesn't do that and they don't know how to promote what they do, tell them, I'll do it for free. I'll help you out. And that automatically will give you marketing experience before you even start studying marketing or start applying for internships or anything like that.
Great advice.
I would start with the smaller businesses.
Interesting. What's like since you're not in the office yet, what is your typical day like? Since you can't go out and meet with people at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it changes daily. It's right now it's a lot of meetings, it's a lot of Zooms. So basically, I guess my typical day, and this is I think important for everybody too, is you need to find like what your anchor is, right? Like it's very unhealthy to just wake up, stuff caffeine down your throat so that way you can start thinking and then try to get to work, right? So some people like to meditate, some people like to read or do whatever, some people like to walk. For me, fitness is a big deal. I need to get up and go work out first before I could even work, because without that I can't think. So no matter what it is for you, I think it's really important to find what that anchor is. And after that happens, and it's basically a lot of meetings, events like today, like right now, and then a lot of sending in reports. But every day is so different. I think that's what I love most about this job.
We've had a couple of questions going back to talking about internships. For the students that are interested in business, what kind of internships or locations would you suggest?
Locations. Well, I mean,
Or companies?
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different areas of business too. So I guess it's kind of like understanding what interests you. One of the really interesting programs I've seen, they're called rotational programs. Not all companies will offer these, but basically a rotational program it'll be maybe like a 6-month program, and they'll literally take you to different departments throughout that 6 months. So you get a little bit of experience from each department. And so throughout that experience, you'll learn, what am I really good at? What did I enjoy doing the most? And sometimes they'll even hire you full time in that role, or you can go out and start pursuing more internships that are in that specific area of business.
Because I think it's safe to say that for anybody who goes into career, I mean, you've been very fortunate that you've liked what you've done. You've gone into different companies, different organizations and liked it. But just because you go into one doesn't mean that that's where you're going to realize you're there for 50 years. And internships are really good at teaching you what you may not like.
Exactly. No, exactly. And you're never gonna know until you try it. So I know, certain people think, that's not what I'm studying, so I'm not gonna apply for that, or I'm not sure if I'm gonna like it or not. You don't know until you try, and honestly, the more experience you have, the better. Even if it's not directly related to what you are interested in, that'll be in your tool belt forever. You'll carry that experience with you forever. So I highly encourage you just to put yourself out there. I think is super important, and just try different things.
That's really good advice. Between anchoring and that's amazing advice. Hopefully I'll take it away. Hopefully everybody else does too. I think we're nearing the end of the time frame. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you think people should really know, the kids that are interested in business or wanting to know what to do and how to get into it? And going into a bank, is it there? I assume there's not a lot of positions for each bank. So what would you recommend?
Yeah, I mean, regardless of what type of role you go into, what type of company, I think the main thing that everybody needs to have is confidence, right? I know everybody is young. You're going to be working or dealing with folks that are older than you and that have been in the industry longer than you. And it's very easy to kind of, put yourself in this little cage where you don't want to speak out, or you don't want to take that risk because you're scared, or you feel like you're not capable of doing it. Having that confidence to take that risk, I think is what has made me so successful, because just not being scared and just doing it, I think, is the biggest thing.
And with that, you have a support system behind you to support you. So if you were to fail, not that you're going to, but if you were to, you'd have someone there to catch you and say, hey, it's going to be okay. Tomorrow's a better day. Absolutely.
I have close friends, but I also have mentors, and that was something I developed throughout my college years as well, was a mentor who helped guide me and make, the best decisions for me. And then even throughout my career now, I meet new people and I'm like, you know what, like this person knows a lot and I would love to keep learning from them. And so you just keep that relationship and have those mentors. So when you do fail, you go back to them and say, hey, I messed up, or how can I fix this? And, they're always there to help you, and it helps you with that, have that confidence to keep moving forward.
Thank you, David, so much for sharing your time with us today. It was very special. It was great. It was really great.
Glad to come back anytime. Glad to come back and meet with any of the students, hopefully in person next time. But absolutely, I loved it, and thank you for the invitation.